Jake, well, Jacob's live too?
Joined with a few others.
Yep. I'm actually live too. I've been live.
Now, if anybody wants to know why we're after James Franco, that's Jacob's fault.
Yeah, that's my fault.
The Franco fans go after him. Cause this shit hurts me. This shit hurts me too. I mean, come on. The goblin DNA should have ran out of you a long time ago.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh
Okay,
man.
For those who know who James Franco is, he's an actor, artist, and
supposed to be the smartest guy on the planet.
Wait, he's that too?
Yeah.
So he's Mimir.
And he's also a pothead.
Okay, that I accept. But damn.
But I sure hope his little brother, the other Franco, isn't exactly like him.
Oh god, I hope not.
Yeah, you know what's funny? It's hard to tell. Like, if him and James had the same hair, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart. Because I know one keeps his short.
Yep.
So let's see. The video that I got from Jacob was from a guy called Thomas. I never heard of this guy. Thomas is insane.
Yeah.
And this was back in damn. This was back in June. How did Franco slip?
Was really back in June. How do you fucking simp, man? How do you simp, Frank or James?
Like, you know, like my only possible, like, this is the richest, like, thing with the girl was she's from Ireland. She said she was Irish, right?
Scottish.
So the rules, and we learned recently that the rules over there are different.
Because the law and age of consent is 16 over there.
Yep. So I don't know how that would work versus here or over there. Like, if she's over there, is he safe while he's over here? That's like that gray. I don't know if that's what can be considered a gray area.
I mean, my state, our age of consent is 16. In New York, it's 17. In Georgia, it's 16.
Yeah.
Plus, you can be married at the age of 16.
Jesus Christ, do they still got all those old school laws that they can't get rid of? Are we living with the founding fathers still?
I would know. Or at least that's as far as I know about age of consent and age of marriage.
Well, I got this video over here. It's about roughly close to 30 minutes that apparently goes into what Franco has done, and God, I don't want the Franco fan base to put a bullet to my head, especially females, because then they're just gonna put the gun right to my head.
We'll be your meat shields. We'll point the guns right back at their heads. We got you, fam.
So let's see. First, I gotta. He's on Saturday Night Live, or if that's what that is.
SNL, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
James Franco, actor, poet, artist, dude. And don't forget, creep. A fucking creep. Now, to some of you watching, you've known that James Franco is a creep for a long time. But to others, this is all news to you. And whether you're new to the James Franco creep train or a long-time passenger, stay tuned, as I'll lay out why James Franco is a creep in this mental episode of...
And this guy really look like he's treating this like it's a news report, sitting at the desk and everything.
Now, before I begin, I want to quickly state my reason for making this video. Just so the idiots out there don't have an opportunity to speculate themselves. The goal of my video is to shine a light on all the shitty things James Franco has done. Because prior to making this video, I wasn't aware of all the shady shit revolving around him. Now, I'd always been a fan of James Franco. His collaborations with Seth Rogen It consistently led to some of my favorite comedies over the last 20 years, including Pineapple Express and This Is the End. I also think Franco was incredible in both 127 Hours and The Disaster Artist, as he showed that beneath that stupid persona of his, he's actually a very talented actor who can carry a movie with his acting skills alone. With that said, I think the reason why I wasn't aware of any of the problematic stuff revolving around Franco for so long is due to the fact that he's consistently had a larger platform than those he has harmed. He has been able to deny or at the very least downplay the accusations against him, but his victims not receiving the same platform to respond and make their own case. You can call it white privilege, but I'm going to call it being rich, successful, and good-looking privilege. Now that I got that out of the way, let's get
Shit, man.
Damn.
So there's a lot of ways one can be a creep. They could be one of those people who makes eye contact with the dentist while they're cleaning their mouth. They could be one of those people who eat potato chips on top of the bag. Or they could be one of those people who tip ridiculous amounts of money to their favorite e-girls in hopes of hooking up with them. And there's the creeps who try to have sex with people that are way too young for them, which is exactly the type of creep James Franco is. So even though we can't be certain when Franco's lust for girls half his age started, the very first transgression that went public was in April 2014, when screenshots were published of Franco sending lewd messages to a 17-year-old girl. Lucy Claude, who is the girl that James Franco was inappropriately messaging, was a Scottish student.
Okay, I gotta pause him right there real quick. She looks a little old. That's the thing, is she doesn't even match a typical 17-year-old, especially in her face. She looks like she's already in her 20s. That's just the detail that I'm picking up on. The girl, like, it's not only you gotta worry about their age, like, you gotta worry about, does a girl who say they're 17 really 17? Because I've seen cases where a Mexican chick who still looked like she was 17 years old and she was 30 was able to enroll in school to sleep with teenage boys.
What?
Wow.
Yeah. So it can go both ways on these types of things.
New York. Lucy attended Franco's Broadway musical of Mice and Men, and after the event stuck around to see Franco leave the theater, along with some pictures. Lucy recorded a video of Franco, in which we could hear Franco asking Lucy to tag him in her post. Later that night, Franco started messaging Lucy through Instagram and eventually through iMessage. I'll give you a moment to read their exchange yourself before taking a deeper dive into some of the individual messages.
Okay, let's see. So, James Franco TV. At first, I couldn't tell if it was him or not, because you know how celebrities usually have the checkmark symbols? His profile doesn't have a checkmark symbol.
It's probably because he hasn't been verified yet.
He hasn't been verified? And I thought as a celebrity, you gotta be verified.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what some of these things are all about. It's like, if you check Vic Mignogna's official Twitter page, not even he's verified on Twitter, and it's weird.
Alright, let's see here. But he says, nearly to my mom, and if you're not... Wow. Yeah, but girls like that too, it's like, almost like, if you know he's older, why are you flirting back?
Right.
Especially if you know who it is.
It's actually kind of common sense, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I can't condone, obviously you don't condone his actions, but it's a two-way street. The stereotype that it's only just the guys gotta eventually die out.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, a guy doesn't reciprocate unless you give him something to reciprocate to.
Yeah.
Okay, so he says that it's him. Yeah, so like it sends a picture. She sends a picture saying it's him.
The first place we Franco definitely crossed the line was his 7th message, in which he asked Lucy, do you have a boyfriend? He goes on to ask, what's your number? Which Lucy evidently gives to Franco since they continue their exchange through iMessage. Franco goes on to really cross the line, and in some jurisdictions, commit a felony by asking Lucy, can I see you and should I rent a room in the hotel she was staying at? Lucy expresses doubt that she is really messaging James Franco, with Franco responding with a selfie in an effort to prove his identity. And what we must presume, since these are the only screenshots out there, Lucy doesn't respond to Franco's request of meeting up, and he says to her, okay, and be well. Lucy insists that she'll come back when she's 18, and that she can't wait to tell her friends back in Scotland about it all. Franco asks Lucy not to tell anyone, with Lucy responding that she won't tell if he gives proper evidence that it's really him she's messaging. Franco refuses and tries ending the exchange, but Lucy raises the stakes, telling Franco that she'll meet up with him if he sends an image of himself holding a piece of paper with her name on it. And being the teen-craving perv that he is, does just that. So now that we had a chance to examine their messages, you might be wondering, how did this exchange ever become public? Well, Lucy herself posted screenshots on Twitter, with the now deleted tweets spreading across the platform like wildfire. Even though we can't be sure what Lucy's motives were for tweeting their exchange, given the context clues, including the message on her tweet that rejecting James Franco has to be the hardest thing I've ever done, and the fact that she showed interest in Franco, such as this response as to whether or not she had a boyfriend and insisting that she'd come back when she was 18. I think this was a simple case of a teenage girl wanting to show off to her friends an attractive celebrity that James Franco found her attractive, and that she had the willpower to turn him down. As far as we know, this is where their exchange ended, because according to both Franco and Lucy, the pair never met after the Broadway play, and because they never met, we can only speculate why Lucy sent her last message. Did she genuinely plan on meeting up with Franco but backed out at the last minute? Did she never plan on meeting up with Franco and was just bait and switching him? Or was it some other motive that I'm not even considering? In the end, all we can really do is speculate why Lucy tweeted the messages. And it doesn't really matter why she did, because even though she might have made some questionable decisions along the way, Franco is the one who needs to answer for his actions, not Lucy. This is because, as far as I'm concerned, if Lucy didn't reject Franco the way that she did, this would have been another EDP 445 situation all over again. And even though that's a whole another can of worms that I'm not going to open up in this video, there's one similarity between EDP's case and Franco's. That being both involve online solicitation of a minor. According to the Library of Congress U.S. Code 18 Section 2422, federal online solicitation of minors to entice or coerce someone younger than 18 years of age to engage in sexual activity. To engage in sexual activity can range from an adult having sexual conversations with a minor, sending or requesting sexual content from a minor, suggesting or agreeing to meet up with a minor for sexual reasons, all the way to having sexual interaction with the minor. The more egregious the infraction, the more likely the individuals to be found guilty of online solicitation of a minor. On top of this, each state has their own online solicitation of minor laws, which differ from the federal law in key ways. The primary reason for this difference is that age of consent differs from state to state. For a visual representation, here's a map of all the ages of consent across the United States. As you can see, a large majority of states have an age of consent of only 16. 31 states to be exact, with 7 states
Damn.
age of consent of 17, and 12 states have an age of consent of 18.
At least Florida fucking at least gives you the respect of 18 years old.
Sure, states with their own self-governing bodies and establish their own laws.
Jesus.
Freedoms granted by the
That many fucking states allow 16?
and a state having a lower age of consent to the federal.
But yet okay, here's a loophole that I find funny. They allow the rule that say it's consent, but then they'll still come after you. So it's almost like, is that rule a bait and switch? And if it is, well damn, finally the enforcement did a smart move.
Yeah.
But how many actually follow up on that, you know?
Hey, what's up,
Oh, geeks. Yeah, but no, we're listening to a video because James Franco has apparently been getting away with being a pervert and a pedophile almost, basically.
Yeah. That's what we're here for today, for this
So we're just listening to it first, and then we go in from there. So it's not even at the halfway point.
Rather than restricting
Yeah,
it.
and
So
I'm the one who did the
16-year-olds can have
look
sex now. Just what the founding fathers
Yeah.
wanted. Well, probably. And most of them were creeps too. Okay, so if a state's age of consent is lower than the federal government's age of consent, when does the federal government's age of consent, and in turn laws for online solicitation of a minor, kick in? After a solid hour of research, I finally found the answer to this question.
Huh?
I'm more of the Tom Holland suit.
Tom Holland.
The spider suit?
Yeah. What about him?
No, I'm wearing it right now.
Oh. Well, say which one? Because they got all 3 of them in there. Actually, 4 of them.
No, I'm playing Spider-Man. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, that's a little more fitting for James Franco because the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. If that makes
Provided by Joseph Calicamarian, a defense attorney for Barry Law Firm based in Nebraska, who I'm sure is thrilled to be featured in my dumbass video. This is what he had to say about the key difference between a federal offense and a state offense to the same crime.
In a federal case, there has to be a nexus between different
states or different traveling between two different states or committing crimes in different states and the crime itself. Whereas a state case tends to happen all entirely within that state. This is actually a key part I left out in the code that I mentioned earlier, which also specifies using the mail or any facility of means of interstate or foreign commerce to more or less hook up with someone under 18 years old. See, I pulled a sneaky on you. It's not that I pulled a sneaky on you, it's just that I thought it'd be less confusing if I revealed that part of the code later. And in case you're wondering, in situations where an individual breaks both federal and state versions of the law, a person can in fact be charged with the same crime twice, and it's not considered double jeopardy, as it's two different governments that are handing out the punishments. Pretty stupid, I know, but that's the way it goes. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. So now that I got all that legal jargon out of the way, how does this all tie in with James Franco's situation with Lucy, New York?
Seriously.
Referring to the Library of Congress a second time, New York Penal Law Section 235.22 states that online solicitation of a minor is disseminating indecent material to minors via computer communication system, and using such communication to invite or induce a minor for sexual conduct or contact, which is exactly what James Franco did. So he's guilty, right? We can finally lock up the smug bastard? Well, no, because as you might have noticed when looking at the age of consent map, New York has an age of consent of only 17, and as a result, the state of New York considers a person a minor only if they're under the age of 17, rather than 18 like the federal government.
Oh, loophole like a motherfucker. Damn. Oh my, that's a fucking, that's a loophole and a half.
Loophole and a half.
Like,
Oh man, I just, whoo.
Appropriate and illegal in 12 states. It was totally legal within the arbitrary borders of New York State, as Lucy met New York's legal age of consent, and all their interactions occurred only in New York and didn't cross any state borders, explaining why the feds didn't kick down Franco's door when the messages went public. Even if the feds tried incorporating an international aspect of Lucy being a Scotland resident visiting New York, the age of consent in Scotland is 16, so whether if it took place in New York or in Scotland, Franco's creepy and totally inappropriate behavior with Lucy would have been totally legal. And how did James Franco respond to all of this? Well, the first thing he did was post his image on Instagram, with a caption suggesting that it was Lucy and her parents' fault for him trying to hook up with a girl half his age. He also added, "Please don't DM me if you're under 18" to his Instagram bio, because, you know, you can't tempt a predator. He also made an appearance on Killing Michael, where everything that's wrong with the situation can be seen in a little over minutes.
And now we know you've been in the news this morning, and it's our understanding that it's something that you wanted to address. So,
I mean, I just didn't, I was just feeling awkward. I didn't want to come on the show and just feel awkward. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, I'm embarrassed, and I guess I'm just a model of, how social media is tricky. It's a way people meet each other today, but what I've learned, I guess just because I'm new to it, it's like you don't know who's on the other end. You meet somebody in person and you get a feel for them, but you don't know who you're talking to, and so
That is a deflection. That's a deflection of 2 quarters.
But unfortunately, in my position, I mean, I have a very good life, but not only do I have to go through the embarrassing kind of rituals of meeting someone, sometimes if I do that, then it gets, published for the world. So now, it's like doubly embarrassing, but
well,
anyway.
I think the way you came out here and handled it is perfectly acceptable. It happens to everybody, and I think it happens to movie stars on a much grander scale, like you just said, because everybody knows who you are. And I promise I will not reveal our text messages.
Of course, lady, you're a cougar.
Where to begin, huh? Well, other than the fact that he missed to try and hook up with a 17-year-old girl, the first thing that he tries to do is shift public sympathy towards himself by saying,
not only do I have to go through the embarrassing kind of rituals of meeting someone, sometimes if I do that, then it gets, published for the world. So now, it's like doubly embarrassing.
He also tries hiding behind the excuse that social media is tricky and that he's new to it.
Social media is tricky, it's a way people meet each other today, but what I've learned, I guess just because I'm new to it, it's like,
but considering the fact that he made over 2,000 Instagram posts and had over 1.5 million followers when this whole incident occurred, it's safe to say that he knew social media like the back of his hand, and that he was full of shit by saying otherwise. You also can't convince me that when Franco asked Lucy to tag him in her post, that he didn't know it was a slick way to get access to her account so that he could message her later. And along with trying to shift public sympathy towards himself, Franco tries shifting blame towards Lucy.
You don't know who's on the other end. You meet somebody.
Dude, you're not the real Harry Osborn.
Feel for him, but you don't know.
This full fucking, the way he's singing in the interview, he looks like Harry Osborn. He don't look like James Franco.
Years old, that she was from Scotland, and that she was visiting New York as an early present for 18th birthday. What do you mean you didn't know her? Oh, you mean you didn't think she was the type of person to post your creepy ass trying to hook up with a girl half your age on the internet for everyone to see? Oh, okay, it all makes sense now. And Kelly Ripa, God, she was awful.
You know, I think the way you came out here and handled it is perfectly acceptable. It happens to everybody, and I think it happens to
Kelly, you're just looking to fuck the guy.
just said because everybody knows who you are, and I promise I will not reveal our text messages.
Thank you.
Why don't I've had the feeling she slept with the black co-host.
Half her age. The little joke about not sharing their messages perfectly highlights the
Why am I the only one that thinks she's fooled with him?
It just highlight the dumb, thirsty fandom of teenage girls that follow James Franco everywhere they goes. Here's just a handful of dumb, thirsty comments defending James Franco and Bill.
God, what has my old city turned into?
Old girl flirting with James Franco. What a scandal. Guess a million other teenage girls would never think of doing the same. I would have gone to meet him like, what's wrong with this girl? He is such an amazing person. And damn, I don't know what to say. She was turning 18 in a month.
What happened?
No, it's just like Smartphone Man.
Oh, because I'm lit. Because there's all these comments, people leaving comments on the video saying, trying to justify this shit.
I guarantee no one would have made a big deal if this happened just a month later. And it's not like James is like 60. He's in his 30s. Big deal. Either way, I'm very jealous of that girl that noise. Come on, girls. James freaking Franco wanted to meet you, and you go and tell everyone. Seriously.
And that's another thing that I wanted to address. Because even if Lucy was 18 when Franco messaged her, it'd still be creepy. Because at 35 years old, he'd still be almost twice as old as she was. Along with people's tendency to defend Franco's creepy behavior because they think he was...
Okay. But hey, where does the position stand on this? Like, I was 22, and the only oldest, like, what you would compare me to is when I was 22, I had a girlfriend that was 19.
That's within 3 years.
Well, the difference is, me, I look my age for the most part. She didn't. She looked as if she was still in middle school. Like, that's how much younger she's been. And now she finally looks like she's in high school, but the girl is grown now. She's like, I'm 20, yeah, I'm 27. She's about 24, 25. So it's like, I also get you also got to get worried about, you know, how you know, people automatically at the gate because of the appearance. Cause like, God forbid, like, the girl could have been older than, I know girls that are older than me, and then I look like I'm the older one in the situation. I was 22 and I screwed a girl that was 26, but she looked like she was in her 30s, you know, the mini MILF body already. So
funny.
This is weird. This is like, it's insane.
There's some doubt thrown as well as to whether or not Franco's exchange with Lucy ever happened at all. As the movie star Franco tout Palo Alto was released the following month in May. The reason for this is that Palo Alto tells the story of an older soccer coach played by Franco getting into a relationship with a younger soccer player depicted by Emma Roberts. Needless to say, Palo Alto's plot paralleled with Franco's real-life transgressions to a T. And because of it, many people thought that Franco and Lucy's exchange was made up and part of some shady publicity stunt to promote the movie. And considering that Palo Alto is based on a short story collection written by Franco himself in 2010, it's interesting that an older man who likes younger girls like Franco would write a story about an older man liking younger girls. It's also interesting that Franco would depict the same older man in the movie, where he got to shoot sex scenes with Emma Roberts, who is 13 years younger than him, and was only 21 at the time of filming. More and more, Franco is sounding like Matthew McConaughey's character in Dazed and Confused.
That's right. High school girl.
Compared to Matthew McConaughey.
I get older, they stay the same age.
I also remember that one too.
And before shifting the discussion to more recent transgressions of James Franco being a creep,
that was parodied in fucking Family Guy.
The episode aired in December 2014, 8 months after Franco tried hooking up with Lucy. And here's a joke that Franco figured would be funny and appropriate to tell during his monologue.
So, something pretty crazy happened. I have this movie called The Interview coming out with Seth Rogen and Sony, and this week Sony Studios got all their computers hacked. This is true.
Alright, let's just fast forward a little bit. Oh yeah, did I mention that Franco's bestest friend, Seth Rogen, was in this monologue? Don't worry, people. I'll get to him before this is all over. And...
All the girls who got any Instagram messages from me this year, last year, the hackers did it. It was the hackers.
As promised, let's jump to some of Franco's more recent transgressions. In 2014, Franco started Studio 4, an acting and filmmaking school where simultaneous directing and acting in films taught some of its classes. Along with providing an environment where students could focus solely on film, Studio 4 was designed to be a springboard for students to start off their acting, writing, and directing careers. But rather than Dini, James Franco's very own production company would hire Studio 4 students to work in their productions. Despite teaching and mentoring hundreds of students, Studio 4...
I got the feeling that this shit is not gonna stick. He's gonna be able to wiggle his way out.
It's not a crime to open up an acting school, and you'll see why I brought this all up in a minute. In 2017, Franco's film was released, chronicling the creation of the best sports movie ever made in 2003's The Room. For his depiction of The Room's eccentric director, writer, and lead actor Tommy Wiseau, Franco received a Golden Globe Award.
Okay, I can't deny one thing. That motherfucker was able to play a perfectly accurate Tommy Wiseau.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. James Franco did. Real good.
You couldn't even fucking tell her. Like, even Tommy Wiseau was like, was that me?
His acting career. On January 7th, during the Golden Globe 75th Annual Award Show, Franco wore a Time's Up pin to show support of the Me Too movements.
Yeah, because they both did that scene. Like, you know, it's from the Tommy Wiseau movie. I forgot the name of the movie. It was The Room. Yeah, The Room. The Room. I fucking saw that in The Room, and I'm like, okay. But then when I saw the movie, what was the movie where Franco did it? The Disaster Artist. When he did Disaster Artist, for a second, until like when you know, when the camera finally zooms in, but you know when he first busts open that door and he starts saying, "I did not hit her," until you see his face. I'm like, why do they got the Tommy Wiseau scene there? When you see it's Franco, I was like, oh shit. I was like, damn.
Right.
I mean, damn, this kills my fucking hope for, because if they were doing this multiverse, since they're doing the multiverse Spider-Mans and Toby's will be involved, and if characters are being brought back from the dead, I'm like, I think if Franco didn't have these problems going on, I would quite literally say, look, I know your armor might be retarded, but come back as the rival to the god, because I would love to see his father and him get into a goblin versus goblin fight.
Oh, that would be real badass.
Because that means, let's say it would take, in a way, it would take Harry dying, like, you know, he died in his world, but then he comes back to life, and it takes him fighting his father to understand that, yo, you know what, you kind of did deserve to die for that shit that you've tried to pull with Peter. You need to go.
Right.
Because they're like, that's the ending I'm never going to let go. In part 2, with Spider-Man 2, when at the end credit scene, when he's going into the lab to contemplate to do the Goblin role, you see the original, you see prototype for another Green Goblin armor. All he could have done, I know the Hobgoblin is a separate character, but in the movie universe, it would make sense to turn.
Hobgoblin in the cartoon was voiced by the one and only Mark Hamill.
Yeah. What did Goblin Jr. do, SGR? Well, not possible. I'll leave you the link in the chat so you can make your own judgments, but him being a creep and using, almost cleverly, how would I say this? He's using the rules from both of our countries, basically. From hers is Scotland, ours is America, but New York is.
Go to the bathroom real quick. I'll be right back.
All right. Anyway, Bushido, it's like you know you learned more. You learned more about local rules, like, you know, when it came to age rules and consent places, because you were the one that taught me this shit. How efficient would you have to be able to pull this off, to not get in trouble either way? So it's like you could keep making mistakes. It's almost like you're just making regular dating mistakes, not court-related mistakes where, you know what I mean, where I'm getting with that. I don't want to keep saying that part because I don't want to say something that's not
PG
kosher.
PG-13 or kosher.
Kosher, yeah. he had a few funny yeah, he did. And, you know, I mean, like we said, I liked him as Harry Osborn, SGR. I can't deny that. He could have been a better Green Goblin if they would put him into, like, hell, I didn't even hate Dane DeHaan. Well, I'm surprised that's the one actor that doesn't get in trouble for anything. That dude knows how to stay straight laced.
Made a great choice in hiring James Franco for Harry Osborn. Perfect personality and everything. Suits it up to the T.
Yeah, exactly. What's up, Red Hood?
For the movie Knocked Up, he had a slight cameo in that, and if you remember, the question he got from Katherine Heigl's character is about the whole thing.
Yeah.
About, reading the comic books of Spider-Man.
Because that was the one thing I was looking forward to with his character when he was Goblin, because a lot of people were just assuming, like I said, the comic book Hobgoblin is completely different. He was a failed fashion artist that found Osborn's technology and just modified it. But if you were to just put it in the movies universe and have Harry make the yellow, what was it? Was it green and orange? Or was it orange and gold and green, like what the Hobgoblin would do?
Hobgoblin was orange and a little bit of blue, so it was mostly orange and blue.
I could have sworn there was green and brown in there somewhere, like his cape, because he had a hood.
The mask and the hood, the hood and the cape itself attached was definitely orange in the mask.
Now,
So ironic, we're talking about Spider-Man while I'm playing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, as I'm saying, it's like, I'm like, man, they had so many roots. But I mean, I don't blame the Spider-Man movies on Sam Raimi. That was the producer of Sony's fault. He fucked that up. Because Sam Raimi had an idea. All he wanted to use for the third movie was Goblin and Sandman would have been the predominant villains. And Spider-Man would have used the black suit for the whole movie, then ripped it off, and then Venom would have been the solo villain for the fourth film. But we ain't gonna get shit. And anyway, I stopped it to where it's like he's talking about some interview that when Franco came out with Tommy Wiseau, and
His acceptance speech.
let's see what's some sort of
Harassment went viral, including this tweet by Sarah Taylor Kaplan, one of Franco's former Studio 4 acting students. In this tweet by Violet Paley, an inspiring...
Wait. Time's up, pin James Franco. Remember the time you pushed my... And that... Damn! Shit, all these women are coming out of nowhere.
Former girlfriends. Ali Sheedy most famously played out...
No, yeah. That movie destroyed. Yeah, it did. That's why Venom. If he's a villain, he has to be the only villain in the film because he can hold the role by himself. And I mean, I didn't have a. See, the thing was, I actually didn't hate. I hated Topher, the role they gave to Topher Grace, like as Venom, but I didn't hate his Venom's design. If that makes sense. Like, you know, when he's in the full Venom suit, like, he's not overly bulky, but he's muscular enough to know that he's a different type of Spider-Man. He was his own size, and he had the original symbol on his chest. So I'm like, you didn't have to make him uber large, especially at that time. You could have just made him more muscular and taller, which he was. He was a little taller, obviously, like he's supposed to, but, you know, if you're gonna make Venom now, you made him the right way. Damn, another thing you sinned upon me, Sony.
Oh yeah, that's right. There's also the Demogoblin and also Demogoblin.
The Demogoblin, yeah.
Yep. That the Demo and Demogoblin all came from the Infinity War saga.
Well, SGR, a side note, the Tom Hardy Venom is already said to fight Spider-Man, and that's when he'll get the white symbol. I think all Venom has to do, this version of Venom, is all he's got to do is probably, let's say he cuts Spider-Man with his claws, and his Spider-Man's blood falls on the suit. Boom, the blood can just basically it's spider blood too, DNA. It would just fuse with the symbiote, therefore giving Venom Spider-Man powers on top of the symbiote powers, and he could just the white symbol could just grow across his chest. It's a simple explanation. It's something that can easily be done. Because I mean, they said these two are gonna fight. Huh? Carnage doesn't have that symbol. Carnage is just a completely different. He's just yellow and black and white with white eyes, basically.
Red, actually.
Yeah, red. Yeah. Red and black with white eyes.
Yep.
There's supposed to be another symbiote called Screamer, because that's what Venom. A lot of people are like, "Oh, great, a symbiote versus a symbiote." I'm like, those were mainly Venom's comics. He was fighting his own his own kind. So of course, what do you want them to look like? They're gonna look like globs of shit on your body.
Yeah.
Except one, I know who's friendly. I know which one's friendly, and I know which one will stick its tongue down my throat and rip my heart out. Let's see here.
Some incriminating tweets about Franco, only to delete them later that night.
Okay, that's actually
3 days later.
That's interesting. So people tweeted the stuff. The females will tweet the stuff about Franco, but victims keep their stuff up. They don't take them down. So it's again, I'm like that's a kind of a
red flag.
It's because you would think if he is capable of something, he would have gone far worse. Okay, it's weird. Okay, you can't say one thing. He's at least obeying the laws of the state he is in. Yeah. That's just. It's not like you're trying. It's so hard to make to have it make sense without making it sound like you defend these actions or not. Because people can't tell the difference. But it's not like, okay, we don't condone how he's doing it. We're just trying to see if it's one side or the other, or if both parties at fault. And yes, the girl, say what you want, people could come out because, you know, women get protected over everything, even though it takes two to make something happen.
Yeah.
She should have known better than to just pursue continuing messaging with him.
Yeah.
I mean, Lord have mercy. It doesn't take rocket science to not know that. Because I think a lot of these cases also have to deal with, like, a lot of these cases you always notice that they got double standards on these cases.
Yeah, but it's always the devil's standards.
Yeah.
January 10th, Franco made an appearance on Stephen Colbert. While there, Franco claimed that I have no idea what I did to Ali Sheedy, and that Sarah and Violet's accusations against him were not accurate. Making sure not to mention their names so that he was in turn not denying any specific accusations against them. And despite making this great old spiel about not being able to live with himself if there's restitution to be made, Franco turns around and while in Seth Meyers the following night, states that he hadn't reached out to Ali Sheedy to learn her perspective, so that he could in turn figure out if there was restitution to be made with her. You know, the restitution he so cared about the previous night. In between these two appearances, the Los Angeles Times.
Oh, really? I haven't even been able to really pay attention because I'm playing that footage and just listening. I haven't even really been paying attention back and forth. I've been letting Bushido handle the
spicier parts with my chest out where I just go full out ruthless.
Oh, don't worry. When I let this, because it's at 18 minutes and it ends at 29:41. I'm gonna let you feel what you got with that, because I know, I'm pretty sure, as much as I know you're gonna give Franco a piece of your mind on that situation, but I think even the chick needs one too.
Yep, I'll be sure to lay it in them.
Yeah.
Published an article that featured 5 women accusing Franco of being sexually inappropriate or exploitative towards them, with Sarah and Violet being 2 of the 5 women featured. One egregious thing that Franco had done, according to Sarah, was during a nude sex scene featuring herself and Franco. He removed plastic guards covering other actresses' vaginas while simulating oral sex on them. To be fair, Franco's never admitted to doing this, and no evidence of him doing has ever surfaced, so it's his word against Sarah's. But just for hypothetical reasons. Let's imagine this actually happens. Now, I know that there are some actors out there who just completely lose themselves in the characters they're portraying, and that there must be absolutely no distractions for them to be at their best. But removing a genital guard? Seriously? Like, other than the fact that it's a complete invasion of someone's body, what could Franco's excuse in that situation possibly be? Oh, I can't eat a pussy right unless I can see it. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. It just seems like one of those scenarios so crazy that no one could have possibly made it up and it had to have happened.
Okay, that's even a weird question I got from my... Okay, wait a minute. Franco, I kinda gotta give this boy a point here that just said that. The lights have been off. As long as I can use the Braille system, I can find pussy in the dark. That you know the Braille system that's invented for blind people?
Yeah.
Okay. As long as I can find my way up that chick's leg, I can find my way in the dark, and I know where the slot is. Okay, I know where to play bingo.
As do I.
So it's not that difficult, but that is actually the worst excuse I've ever heard when a guy says, "I can't, I need the light on." No, you don't. Especially if it's a thick girl, you're turning the lights off.
Sarah also said
that's just the rules.
Scene, and both her and the other actresses seemed totally slapped on and had little to no relevance to the plot. Sarah also recounted another unscripted scene involving nudity, where she and a few other female co-stars danced around Franco topless while wearing animal skulls on top of their heads, and that when one of the girls balked at the idea, was sent home the following day. Seriously, what type of fucking movie is this? Seems like just an excuse for Franco to surround himself with naked women, doesn't it? Remember how I said that Studio 4 students received the opportunity to work in James Franco's productions? Even though it's true that Studio 4 students did in fact receive roles in James Franco's films, they were all small, insignificant roles paid like shit, and most of them required nudity. This ties right into the tweet that Sarah made during the Golden Globes, where she said she got paid only $100 a day for full nudity. Sarah would go on to express regret in starring these movies by saying, "Now if you Google me, you can see me naked. Before I ever been on TV, before I ever had any real credits." Violet was also featured in the LA Times article, and referring to the tweet that she made during the Golden Globes, said that she did in fact engage in a sexual act in the car, as he was kind of nudging my head down, and I didn't want him to hate me. Now, I know this is really obvious for some of you, but for others it's not, but don't pressure someone into doing a sexual act for you. I mean, if they're doing it without you having asked, and they obviously want to do it, which is great, everyone's happy. And of course, if they're your significant other, you can ask them to do that sexual act for you. But if they don't definitively say, "Yes, I'll do this for you," then let it go. Put your ego to the side and don't ask them a second time. This is a little something called consent. Also worth mentioning is the fact that Violet is 16 years younger than Franco, which is more evidence that James Franco is in fact thirsty for underage ones. To be fair, Violet was 21 at the time, so she wasn't underage. But a 37-year-old dating a 21-year-old? Come on now. Now, if Franco and Violet met when he was 66 and she was 50, make it for the same 16-year age gap. Their relationship would be totally acceptable in comparison, as the percent difference between their ages wouldn't be as dramatic. But in 2016, when Franco was 37 and Violet was 21, Franco was nearly twice as old as Violet, which is just a little too weird of a relationship in my book. Some of you out there might be thinking that Violet was a grown woman, that she can love anyone that she wants. Now, I'm not saying...
Yeah, but, okay, this is where I kind of got to add some credence. That's a lot of the situation, especially with, let's say, our fathers and our mothers. Our father or our mother is usually a lot older than our moms. When it's like that, it's funny how something that was actually a common thing is now the problem, but that's how a lot of our parents and people from, let's say, the 60s, 70s, anything up met.
Yes.
So it's just, I find the situations like hard to tackle because there's a right and wrong to this.
What you think of James Franco? General consensus says that he's a rich, funny, good-looking, successful guy, and because of it has a plethora of girls that would love to be in a relationship with him. So there's really no excuse for him to go after girls that are half his age. Even if he wasn't rich, funny, good-looking, and successful, what does a 37-year-old and a 21-year-old really have in common? I get it, men are more attracted to younger girls because they can bear more children and all that other Jordan Peterson, Sigmund Freud sounding crap. But there comes a point where the older individual in a relationship, who needless to say is almost always a man, has to grow the fuck up and say no to dating people half their age. Because as the older individual, they're supposed to be the more responsible one. Alright, I'll get off my soapbox now. In October 2019, almost 2 years after the LA Times article was published, 2 former female Studio 4 students, one of them being Sarah, filed a lawsuit against Franco for sexual misconduct and exploitation. According to an article published by the New York Times, the lawsuits say that Franco subjected his students to sexually exploitative auditions and film shoots, and that Studio 4 was little more than a scheme to provide him and his male collaborators with a pool of young female performers that they could take advantage of. Now, this lawsuit is taking place in civil court rather than criminal court, and there's some key differences between the two that I want all of you to understand. In criminal court, somebody is being accused of a criminal offense, while in civil court, somebody is being accused of a civil offense. Punishments for criminal offenses can include fines, prison time, and in extreme cases, execution, while for civil offenses, the only possible punishment is fines. In criminal court, a person is found either guilty or not guilty of committing an offense, while in civil court, they're found either liable or not liable. In criminal court, for somebody to be found guilty of a criminal offense, it must be proved beyond a reasonable doubt that they committed the offense, which, to give a rough percentage, is about 95% certain. While in civil court, for somebody to be found liable of a civil offense, the preponderance of the evidence standard must be met, which is pretty much a fancy way of saying that the person more likely than not committed the offense, or 51%. Sexual harassment is an umbrella term for all sexually inappropriate behavior, with sexual assault being a criminal offense, and sexual misconduct being a civil offense. And because the women who filed the lawsuit were accusing Franco of sexual misconduct, they were looking to sue Franco rather than send him to prison. I mean, if they could send Franco to prison, they probably would. But since sexual misconduct is only a civil offense, they couldn't send Franco to prison even if they wanted to. In February 2021, the lawsuit was settled with both women dropping their claims. How much money they were seeking and how much money they ultimately received is unknown at this time, as many of the details revolving around the case haven't been made available to the public. So since Franco settled with the woman, can we take this as an admission of guilt? I mean, if he hadn't done anything wrong, he would have stood his ground and not gave either of them a penny, right? Well, no, we can't, as there are a lot of reasons why people might settle a lawsuit rather than go through the whole legal process. Lawsuits are incredibly time-consuming and lawyers are expensive, so much so that in a lot of cases, by the time the winning side pays their lawyers, there's nothing left over for them to have. On the flip side, perhaps with his history of making bad choices with women in the past, Franco figured that he would be found liable anyway, and rather than going through the whole legal process of defending himself, just pay the women some, if not all, the damages they were seeking. Or perhaps Franco was guilty of sexual misconduct and exploitation, and just settled with the women so that the lawsuit would receive as little media coverage as possible. And as promised, let's talk about Seth Rogen. So Franco and Seth have been seemingly best friends since 1999, with both starred in the TV series Freaks and Geeks. And since Freaks and Geeks, Seth and Franco have starred in 8 movies together, most notably Pineapple Express, This Is the End, The Interview, and Sausage Party. And with these 4 movies, girls...
Sausage Party will be the day my sisters will never let that go. because of what I did. And I told them, I lied to them saying, yo, I haven't seen this movie before, but I heard there was this kids movie about talking food. They sat all the kids in the kids room and just played it. She thought the name was weird, but she just assumed the character on the front was was supposed to be a sausage, and it was a joke. And then she hit play, and then all I know is I'm in the other room chilling with my older nieces and nephews, the ones that are smart. All I heard is when she went, I guess she went to go check on them, she was like, what the fuck are you all watching? Because she walked right in on the supermarket orgy. She came barging into that fucking room looking for me. She did not know I was like right behind the door, because I tried to slip into the closet, and she was like, where the fuck did your uncle go? They were like, one of my nephews was smart. He opened the window to make it look like I went out the window. The moment she left that room and tried to look for me, waited till she was outside and locked my ass in my nephew's room. So...
over $250 million combined at the box office. I guess we could say...
Sausage Party was one trip. Me and my friend saw it in the theater.
Oh, Sausage Party is a fucking... That is something, if you didn't know what you were going into... Because they didn't even say it was adult humor. Like, I think they didn't even... They hid the rating from the trailers because they knew it was going to be a joke. Like a dirty movie.
I know it was rated R because it's sad.
Well, no, some of the trailers really didn't, which was some fucked up shit. And they played the trailers by taking out all the profane stuff and it sounded like it was an animated kids film.
Yeah, deceptive practices.
For a movie like that, I can let it slip.
Seth and Franco an inseparable duo, right?
You're wrong!
That's because during an interview given last month to the Sunday Times, Seth said that he currently has no plans of working on Franco again. When asked if he believed the accusations against Franco, Seth gave a non-answer, saying that it despised abuse and harassment, and I would never cover or conceal the actions of someone doing it, or knowingly put someone in a situation where they're around someone like that. He also expressed regret for this joke that he made during an SNL monologue that took place less than 2 weeks after Franco tried hooking up with Lucy.
I decided to prank James Franco. I posed as a girl on Instagram. Told him I was way young. He seemed unfazed. I have a date to meet him at the Ace Hotel.
And just because he's great at making rational decisions, Franco figured that it'd be really funny if he had a part in the joke too.
I just wanted to say, great prank, buddy. I've been waiting at the Ace Hotel for like 3 days.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. We'll talk about that later.
Okay, well, bye, everybody.
You guys are cute. You guys got jokes for days.
So what changed? Did quarantine make Seth realize how much of a creep and asshole James Franco is? Perhaps so. But one thing we could definitely say is that Charlie Sheen, who started alongside Franco and Seth in Disaster Artist, definitely sped up Seth's public outing of Franco. This is because in April, Charlie posted...
Like, and I didn't think those two were having problems themselves.
Obviously.
Cause I mean, those two, it looked like not a fucking disagreeing bone was in each other's bodies.
Post on her Instagram page after hearing rumors that Franco was a sexual predator. She tried quitting the Disaster Artist, but in doing so, the production team tried bribing her with a bigger role in the movie. And considering that Seth was the producer of the film, had to have known about the bribe. Charlene also made mention of Seth's joke of Franco trying to have sex with a 17-year-old 1 month before his interview with the Sunday Times. So whether he was expressing regret for victims of sexual harassment for making that joke, or expressing regret for himself, is uncertain. I agree with Charlene that Seth needs to be held accountable for enabling, normalizing, and covering up Franco's shitty, predatory behavior. Now, Seth is definitely not as guilty or as liable as Franco, because after all, an accessory to a crime does not and should not receive the same punishment as the person who commits the crime itself. But considering the extent that Seth enabled, normalized, and covered up Franco's predatory behavior, he definitely needs to do more than simply not work with Franco again. With his wealth and connections, one thing Seth could do is give Franco's victims the same platform he had to shoot down their accusations before they even had a chance to leave the grounds, including talk shows like Kelly and Michael, now Kelly and Ryan, The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, and Late Night with Seth Meyers. This is because the Me Too movement was never about always believing in sexual harassment victims, but giving them access to the same platforms their abusers had to make their case and refute the argument their abusers were making. Hold on, I'm getting a call on the invisible Bluetooth earpiece I've had in my ear this entire time. Oh hey, Seth Rogen, what's up? So you're saying that we can't do that because the shows won't invite those guests? Because their number one goal is to make money, and that the people behind them don't actually give a shit about equality and justice? Well, never mind. At least we tried, right boys? So what are some takeaways that we can have from this video? Well, other than the fact that James Franco likes fooling around with girls that are way too young for him, and that his behavior towards women has been unacceptable and downright predatorial over the last 7 years, James Franco has gotten away pretty scot-free with everything he's done so far. This is in large part because his thirsty, obsessive fan base thinks he can do no wrong, and in part because he has consistently had larger platforms than his victims to state his case and refute their own. Again, the only thing that Franco has downright admitted to so far is trying to hook up with Lucy. But considering this problematic president he said himself, I think we can agree that James Franco probably did sexually harass and exploit Violet, Sarah, and many other students who enrolled in Studio 4. Now, I'm not saying that James Franco should be locked up, because despite all the shitty stuff he's done, none of it was criminal offenses in respects to where it occurred. If you believe that Franco should be criminally charged and locked up for trying to hook up with a 17-year-old girl or sexually exploiting Sarah and Violet, it's your right to believe that. What I am saying, though, is that more attention should be brought to Franco's shitty actions, so that actresses that do work with him in the future can be properly warned of his predatorial tendencies. And even though some people out there would still love James Franco to kill the litter of puppies on live television, as more people learn about his transgressions, his fandom will decrease in its size and ability to influence public perception in favor of Franco. We'll have to wait and see if Seth keeps his word of not working with Franco ever again, And if so, what effect will have on Franco's career? Who knows, maybe one day Franco could be essentially blacklisted from Hollywood the same way Kevin Spacey's been blacklisted for being a fucking creep himself. Considering that most of Franco's work done alongside Seth or a great director like Danny Boyle has been pretty shitty so far, if Seth keeps his word, it might prove to be the beginning of the end of Franco's career. And along with Seth apologizing to the woman that he allowed Franco to sexually harass and exploit, what more could we ask for? I think this video goes to explain why Franco didn't get sucked up to heaven and this is the end.
Hey, Jay, how you doing?
Suck my dick!
No, James Franco. Fuck you and suck my dick. So if you made it to this point in my video, thank you for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. And comment as well because it helps me and my channel a lot. If you'd like to watch my future videos, please subscribe if you haven't already. So yeah, this is it for this video and until next time. Provided there is a next time. For any of us.
Whew.
That was a long one.
Okay. So, what do you, Bushido? Where do you think we should where would you want to unload first on that?
Well, for one, it's creepy and on the category of being a sexual predator going after a 17-year-old from Scotland, that's not okay. Okay, I get it. Age of consent in Scotland is 16, but in New York it's 17. But oh my God, if you're in your damn 30s, don't be hitting on a barely legal lady. I mean, don't you think that
I would say, of course. No, but it's like when we was mentioning it, I think actually this, and it reminds me of, I don't know if Jacob, I don't know if you're gonna recall this, but do you remember when I was listening to a case where a guy got out of vehicular manslaughter because he was good looking?
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've heard it. I've heard about that.
Yeah, I think you was listening to it in the background when I was listening to it in the background, and you was hearing me, you was hearing, and you were like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is almost like that, except nobody died.
Yeah, nobody died.
But it's like these, okay, but the chick, okay, if you're 16, 17, I think by the time you're freaking 17, the rules that your parents place on you should have stuck at this point. Because that's at the point where you start knowing better.
Yeah.
So it's more so, what reason did she have to continue to pursue? Because, like I said, it's got to go both ways. You pursue, he pursues, somebody has to continue the pursuing for both sides.
Yeah. I mean, don't be young and stupid and all that. I mean, if you're 17 and you happen to see an attractive actor, please do not give him fuel and ammunition.
Mm-hmm.
That's just dumb. And more or less, the part where James says, don't tell anybody, it's like, that's a little bit of a red flag of being shady.
Yeah, that's like a red flag, like right there. I'm like, dude, what?
It almost sounds like he has plans to kidnap her.
I wouldn't think he's that.
Honest.
Oh yeah. But I wouldn't think he's that fucking crazy. Like, he might be high as hell, possibly, but he don't look like he's that fucking crazy to do a kidnapping.
Right. And the fact that Seth Rogen doesn't even want to work with James anymore, that's like,
I didn't even understand what happened with that.
Yeah, and it's funny how they reference this is the end, and it's because James had too much of an ego, and he got ate up by Danny Masterson and everybody else. Yeah, remember?
It's been a minute since I've seen that movie.
Yeah.
I say, because a lot of the James Franco stuff is like a while out.
Yeah.
I'm just like, not James Franco. I mean, The dude that one made Harry Osborn believable, played a perfectly good stoner, managed to go to Korea and live, and then you do this. And you do all this.
Yeah, and we discovered it back in 2014, so about 7 years ago, and it's like, what the fuck were you thinking?
But it's like, where is like everything going on right now? Like, how come all this stuff's being covered now, as opposed to has more stuff come out that people have like found? It just makes you wonder, like, what has this? What else has he done that no one knows? And I'm pretty sure there's gotta be a list.
Oh yeah.
Like Chris Jericho said, you're on the list.
You just made the list.
I love that meme. I actually like that meme he does. You just made the list.
Yep. Chris Jericho's list of everybody Chris Jericho does not like or anybody eat.
You're on the list.
Champion.
Yup.
Yep.
Let me see here, because I'm pretty sure there's gotta be. Now I'm scrolling through YouTube to see if there's anything that he has done within this year.
Yeah, that's bringing up questionable things to make us doubt.
Let's see. Oh shit. There was okay. Whoa. Scarlett Johansson called him out?
For real?
Yeah.
Damn.
James Franco case just got like, it's all coming out this year. Jeez, between 2021 and everything.
Severe ulcerative colitis or Crohn's disease, your plans can change.
What the hell?
James Franco is in big trouble, and some celebrities are talking about their weird experiences with him. If you didn't know,
Celebrities?
Franco has been exposed by numerous females, saying that he has an alleged predatory vibe.
You know shit's
Ouch.
going down.
That's not something you want said about you, especially if it can ruin your career. Despite having tons of A-list movies in his portfolio, the past few years have not been that good to James Franco, as it seems like every year there are more details about his weird vibes. In 2014, a Scottish teenager who was 17
Okay, there's that one.
that the actress said some pretty raunchy things to her despite her age. Since
And that was the predominance of that other dude's video, but if there's more, goddamn.
3 different accusations from
Yeah, if
females.
that's gonna be
James
the
Franco
case, then
recently agreed to
James
a $2
Franco is
million
not gonna be
settlement
a
in court, which
job
was shared between the
anymore.
named accusers.
Blacklisted much.
James Franco back.
Blacklisted
Some
much?
celebrities have said they don't want to
Cancellation
ever work with
much?
him again. So let's get into
Yep.
how celebrities warned us about James Franco.
God,
The
how
first
does
person on
he
our
get
list is Seth Rogen.
blacklisted
The popular
so
actor
hard?
used to be good friends with James Franco as they started to make movies together. Well, after
Ooh.
James was accused by tons of females for his bad behavior, Seth Rogen said he will be distancing himself from Franco. Rogen revealed that their personal relationship had been affected by those accusations, and they have no current plans to work together again. Here's his exact words. What I can say is that I despise abuse and harassment, and I would never cover or conceal the actions of someone doing it, or knowingly put someone in a situation where they were around someone like that. So it's safe to say that Seth Rogen is no longer friends with James Franco anymore. Next up, we have a famous actress who actually exposed James Franco after his 2018 Golden Globes win. James won the award for Best Actor for Musical or Comedies back in 2018, and Ali Sheedy, the popular actress, had a lot to say about it. She took to Twitter to warn fans about his weird vibes. Here's what she had to say. James Franco just won. Please never ask me why I left the film TV business. She later took down the series of tweets about James Franco, as she didn't want to involve herself in any drama, but it's obvious she was disappointed that people were still supporting James Franco. At that time, there weren't too many details about James Franco's weird habits, so this was like the actress was warning people that he's not a good person. I mean, a fellow Hollywood star would know that James Franco has bad vibes, because she had worked closely with him in the same industry.
Ali Sheedy also had a tweet. She since took it down. I heard you mention last night on Stephen Colbert's show that
Yes, I had had a great relationship with her are not accurate. The next celebrity that had exposed James Franco for his wrongdoings is Busy Phillips. These two were filming a show back in 1999 called Freaks and Geeks.
99?
Said Franco was an ethical bully on set and shoved her to the ground. In an excerpt from Phillips' upcoming memoir, this will only hurt a little. Phillips recalls being instructed to lightly hit Franco in the chest for a scene on the show. Franco then broke character and attacked her, she alleges. He grabbed both my arms and screamed in my face, "Don't ever touch me again," Phillips writes in her book, and he threw me to the ground, flat on my back, wind knocked out of me. This is a little different from his past accusations, but I think it ties in with his bad behavior. I mean, he has a track record of allegedly mistreating women. Franco then stormed off, Phillips says, and apologized the next day after being ordered to by the director and producers.
And what you describe is that James Franco blew up at you once and knocked you out of the ground.
And, you know, it was painful for me, and he apologized to me later. I mean, at the time, I feel like he's really, like, how I describe it in the book. He was like, I'm sorry, that wasn't cool, and kind of got away with it a little bit, you know? James Franco and I really didn't get along.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When we were on Freaks and Geeks, we were 19, we really disliked each other. It's well documented. He, like, shoved me to the ground once. It was, like, really brutal.
This isn't the first time Phillips has spoken.
That's the first time I heard of that shit.
During her 2016 appearance with Andy Cohen's Watch What Happens Live, she said the two really disliked each other, and elaborated on his behavior. He felt like he wanted his character to be one way. He had a discussion with the producers that he came from an abusive family or something, and so he didn't want his girlfriend, I played his girlfriend, to ever hit him. I never knew this conversation existed, and in improv, I smacked him on the thing, and he was like, "Don't ever touch me," and grabbed me and shoved me to the ground. It was an overreaction by a 19-year-old dude, and it was weird and people's agents had to be called, and he had to apologize to me. So although females have only come out about his weird vibes since 2014, Busy Phillips actually warned us about James Franco way before that. So what does James Franco think about these accusations? And all of the celebrities he was once friends with exposing him. James went on the Late Night Show after winning his Best Actor award back in 2018. And he said this: "There are some things on Twitter. I haven't read them. I heard about them." He then went on to say that he has no idea what he did to some of these celebrities.